There we go. Hello, long time no see. It has been a very, very, very long time since I have done a live. Life has not necessarily allowed it lately. Obviously, I could make time for it if I wanted to, but I've just been working so much and hanging out with the kiddo and really just like actually living and less on social media. But I just had some part of my day free up. I don't know if anyone's around at 12 o'clock Pacific to hang out for a little bit, but I figured I would come on and see how everyone's doing, see if anyone wants to talk about anything, see how, see how y'all are feeling coming into the holidays. The holidays can be a really rough time for people, depending what their families are like or who they have to be around and everything like that. So we, can always be comforted and validated in those kinds of situations. Also, we can not talk about abuse. Sometimes I like to come on here and just hang out, and people ask me like super random questions and we end up talking about other stuff. Let's see. I did just publish a podcast episode. It was my 100th podcast episode. I have created 100 podcast episodes talking about abuse, talking about my experience with abuse, healing from abuse, talking about what covert abuse looks like, giving examples, doing all of that stuff. And so if you're interested in that and want to check it out, my podcast is called It's Not All Rainbows, if you're new here, about healing from abuse. It's on Spotify. It's on wherever you want to listen to podcasts, anywhere. It's also on YouTube if you need captions. I try to caption everything just so that anyone who needs captions has access to that. That is why I put them on YouTube. I don't have the best quality camera or anything, so it's not like it's like this amazing production, but it's there for people who need to be able to read what's going on. But yeah, 100th episode. And I talk about some of the things that I've done since leaving, which I feel like is an important part of abuse awareness and abuse recovery. There's a lot of, I'm not saying that like I'm a better account or I'm doing more better things than other people, but there are a lot of accounts that just talk about abuse and what it looks like. And that's good for them. But my healing has been such a huge, my healing has been such a huge part of my healing. And so I talk a lot about healing and the things that I'm doing now and talk about other things besides abuse because I think that that's really important. And so that's basically what I do in today's episode is like, what have I done? What have I done since that day at my mom's house that I was like, I had created a podcast. And, if you followed me at the time, probably on Instagram, I was a late blooming lesbian account. Like I was like, oh, this is my family, this is my child, I co-parent and all that stuff. And I talked a lot about coming out later in life and what that can look like and what it feels like. And originally that was going to be my podcast. And to be honest with you, I think if that had been my podcast, I wouldn't have made it to 100 episodes. I think I would have gotten bored with it because I don't know. It's an important thing. I think it's a really important thing. There needs to be visibility with that and support with that. But I think I would have been like, okay, well, I've made enough stuff. I can be done with that. Whereas with abuse, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I don't know how I've made 100 episodes about abuse, but then I'm like, I can make for sure 100 more because it's so multifaceted and it's so complex and there's so many twists and turns and, there's so many things that I can talk about like on a macro scale and then pick apart and make 10 episodes or more and talk about like what abuse can look like on a micro scale, which is pretty wild, but I still am just like, I don't know how I got to 100 episodes. But yeah, in that episode, I just talk about some of the things I've done, some growth that I've done, some things that I've started doing, like, oh, I enjoyed this, so I'm going to do that, all kinds of things. So check it out if you're interested in listening to that. What else? Oh, I do have group coaching. If you aren't aware, I have group coaching available once a month. And so if that's something that you're interested in, the group coaching is only, I think we've had 3 rounds of it so far. And the next one is December 8th. So that's just around the corner, really. We're 2 days away from December. So if you're interested in that, space is limited. So you can definitely book for that at calendly.com/the Lindsay Goodman. And get in on that. Cause like I said, it's been really cool. At first I was hesitant to do it because like nobody wants group coaching with me. That's wild. I was having some imposter syndrome. And like I said, we've had some really good turnouts and some really supportive, healing people, supporting their own healing and supporting the healing of other people. You never know who's going to show up in group and say the thing that the gnats right now are wild, or the fruit flies or whatever. I'm sitting here trying to interpret. If you don't know, I'm a sign language interpreter. I'm like trying to interpret, and there's like bugs flying in my face. And I'm like, sorry. Let me get right back to you. But yeah, so group coaching is available. What else? Everybody's really quiet. It's kind of a small group. Usually I don't stick around too long if there's not a lot of people, because it feels weird just talking to myself. But usually if I stick around for a while, more people do come in. But I definitely have a lot to do today. I'm not usually alone when I'm at home, and today I am alone when I'm at home. So I started my day with a workout. I ran some errands. I dropped some stuff off. I've been talking about this on the podcast during like struggles and successes a lot, where I just moved. I'm trying to get rid of stuff. I'm having a lot less stuff in my space. So I was dropping stuff off for like donation, consignment, whatnot. But yeah, I definitely have some things I could get done. I've got to record some podcast episodes, because usually I record several episodes ahead, and I got to the point where I had one and locked and loaded, and I was like, "Ooh, I need to get recording." So I just recorded another one. So I definitely could knock a couple of those out today while I have alone time. Very, very rare for me, but that's fine. That's where I'm at in my life right now, right? Sometimes it can be hard when you're in a certain phase in your life and it feels like it's always going to be that way, but at the same time, it's not always going to be that way. And when it comes to kids, it goes so fast. And so like, I'm so thankful for the amount of time that I get to have with my son. But like I said, it can be pretty wild trying to juggle all the things that we juggle as single parents and people who are like just trying to survive in this world full of stuff that we all have to do. I'm not going to work 6 p.m. to 6:30 in the morning on a weekend. That is a crazy request. Please do not do that again. Well, I'll hang out for a little bit longer. Lots of people joining on TikTok, but everybody's so quiet. So I'm going to multitask. Upload that next podcast level episode. Hey, Kim, how's it going? Good morning from Cali. Good morning. It's actually afternoon. It's after 12 o'clock now. How's it going? Man, I made my lunches. I was just making an extra lunch. Ooh, I know. I'm bringing you with me to shell my hard-boiled eggs. See if anyone else joins us this morning. I said it too this afternoon. I usually, when I go live, it's like after work, like evening time. And so this is a very weird time for me to go live. But like I said, we got to do what we got to do. Where am I going to even put you guys? Go. We're going to microwave. I have a smaller kitchen than I had a month ago, 2 months ago. But I like it. I have less stuff, keeping it clean and doing just fine. But it makes it harder to multitask when I'm live. Ay. Like for a while there, I was doing lives at the house where I lived before. I lived at my son's dad's house for almost 2 years. And so we lived together, and I would do lives there, and I would cook, and I'd put dishes away, and I would do all that stuff. But there was like space to put the setup made more sense. And so now, like, if I have to do something in the kitchen and I put you in here, I'm like, I have to move you again. I have to move you again. I have to move you again because it doesn't make sense. I either have my back to you or I'm like curled up over here because the other house has like an island and it's thick. So I would put you on the back of the island and then do my work and all that stuff. But we're going to just do it for a little bit here. I'm trying to figure out what to do with my day because my son's with his dad right now. His dad was gone for a little bit, so I hadn't seen his dad for a while. So that's a good thing. But I was supposed to be working tonight. I'm supposed to be working really late, and I'm not now because my client is sick. So I'm like, what do I even do? I'm not used to having free time. I already worked out, which is awesome. I mean, I can always organize a little bit, but I'm like, ooh, what am I going to do to make the most of my day? I'm so excited. I'm going to probably record some more podcast episodes, and then I think I'm going to go and sit at a coffee shop. And I was going to cancel pole today. I have pole class, but I usually only go when I drive to work, but I'm thinking I'm still going to go. I'm still going to enjoy that time because it is sacred. Pole class has been a huge part of my healing. And boxing as well, but I stopped doing boxing because it's hard to get to and it's very expensive. Like with my pole class, pole is also like a lot of the exercise that I really enjoy and feel like healing and like liberating and all that stuff. They're kind of expensive, but with pole, I get to do them like one at a time and I get to do it whenever I can do it versus with boxing. It's like you always have to have a membership. And I'm like, I can't get in often enough to justify a membership. And plus it's really expensive. But I do have a bag, but it's at my son's dad's house in his garage, and I don't have anywhere to put mine. So I don't really get to do boxing anymore, which is really unfortunate because I do love it. And like I said, it's really healing. Not because I'm looking at the bag and punching it and being like, this is my ex, and I'm going to punch the crap out of my ex, because that I don't feel. But it's just really healing to have that. Like, it's empowering. I really enjoy boxing. So I don't know. Hopefully I'll be able to get back into it in some capacity, but I cannot fit a punching bag in this little space that I have now. Thank you so much. I have said this to you before, but leaving my ex would never have happened without you. Thank you for saying that. It means so much to me. It keeps me going. It keeps me posting and sharing because, like, I say this all the time, but, like, you know, I could be done. I've done a lot of work. I've created a lot of content, which is still there. And I'm like, man, I could be done. But you just never know who, like, first of all, it's very important. And I'm very passionate about abuse awareness. And I think that our society still desperately needs more of that. Not just survivors, victims and survivors of abuse, but like everybody, people who've never been abused or don't know they're abused, and people in positions of power, and lawyers and judges and police officers and first responders and DV advocates, even could probably a lot of them upgrade their knowledge of covert abuse and coercive control. And so I keep going, and it really does mean a lot to me because it's one of those things where you never know. Like, you could sit here right now and watch 42 videos about abuse, and then maybe there's something that I say or show you that just really clicks in your brain, and you're like, oh my gosh, everything makes sense now. And then you can go back and you can learn more from other people and all that stuff. But that's why I think it's important to have not all hands on deck, because not everyone can, or, you know, not everyone is going to be willing to share publicly, but like, you never know. You could tell your friend, you could be at home, you can tell your friend, and maybe that helps your friend be able to get out as well. But we need a lot of hands on deck. We need different voices. We need different styles of sharing information. We need different platforms and programs and, you know, whatever of sharing information, because it's bad. It's rough out here. A lot of people are experiencing horrific things and don't know it. And so thank you so much for sharing that with me. I don't know if you know how many people you've helped. Sometimes I wish I did know. Sometimes I wish I had like a little running tally, but that feels like, well, then you're crossing over into like vanity metrics or something. Like, look, how many people, but it would be super cool to just feel like this was all worth it and have like a tangible way to be like, this was all worth it. Because I'm pretty sure there are some people like it probably in my personal life who are like, you're crazy. You spend so much time talking about abuse and like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yes, I do, because this is so important. And anytime that I feel like I said, that I could be done, I get another burst of energy to keep trucking. Covert abuse is impossible to recognize without help. Absolutely. My ex is back in court in the new year after the girl after me has pressed charges. Good. I'm glad that she did that. Just knowing I'm not crazy helps, because for a while I definitely thought I was crazy. Yeah, same. It sucks. For me, I like to see that regardless of what's happened in your life, I can see you continue to function, succeed, and help others on a day-to-day basis. Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that to me, because today's podcast episode is about, it was my 100th episode. So it's about like what I've done since I left. And I was just kind of talking about this when I started. So if you already heard me, I apologize. But like, it's not necessarily about abuse. It's not the episode that's going to teach you something about abuse or anything like that. But the things that I've done since I made episode 1, which was like right after I left, and how much growth I've done or things that I've taken up, how I've sort of took back the reins and rewrote my life. And I think that that is essential if you're going to talk about abuse, if you're going to make abuse content and you're getting away and you're going to talk about like, how do we heal from abuse? I think it's really important to include those things, because it's not just going to be, well, this is what abuse looks like. Knowing that there are people who get out of those situations and can go and live on their own and can be successful and can travel and exercise and have friends and do all that stuff is very, very important, because a lot of times when you're in it, you're just like, I'm never going to be okay again. I'm never going to be able to do this or that. This is going to be my life forever. And that's just not true. Sometimes it takes longer than it does for other people, and that's okay. We're all on different journeys. We're all different people with different supports or lack thereof. But I do think that it's really important to share kind of the whole spectrum of like, I try to give my whole person. I don't share my son anymore. I don't share his face. I don't tell you guys everything. And now my content is separated. Like I have Lindsay Goodman coaching and I have the Lindsay Goodman. If you follow me on the Lindsay Goodman, it could be stuff about like my kid and what we do together, or homeschooling, or projects we do. Like maybe one day we're doing a mushroom kit and harvesting mushrooms. Maybe one day we're on a walk. Maybe one day it's me traveling or whatever. It's just me existing. And I think that that's really important to show too. I really do. So thank you so much, Mike. Exactly. All that helps the healing, I think. Yes. And his mom and family are blaming me for the extra charges. Yep. Their families are incredible enablers, and they're always going to make it someone else's fault. It's always someone else's fault. I can remember, like, my abuser's family is a family of enablers, and the brother, which this should have really been something. I mean, just because your sibling does something doesn't mean that you're going to. But when my abuser was treating me the way they were, but then also like their brother had a pending felony charge because he did something to his wife. But then the mom was like, well, it was her fault. And she did this and she did that and whatever. And I was like, I don't believe you. I don't believe any of you, because I know how this person is. And I've heard you talk about the brother, and like, it's bad. The families can be super enabling, and they can really do a lot of damage to victims as well, in terms of contributing to the feeling of being crazy and all that stuff. My ex hated your content, helped me a lot. That's actually something that scares me. Is that someone's abuser is going to be so mad that they lost, I've never said this out loud, they lost control of someone, that person's going to like find me. That's something that scares me. But I think in this world, that's a legitimate fear. Lost so much sleep. I know. And you can't get it back. And it sucks. I'm not asking for compliments, but I look so much older than I would have had I not. I already know. I know that. Like, some of it is genes, right? Some of us, like, your parents went gray when they were 12 or whatever. Like, some of it is genes, but I look considerably older. Like I have aged a lot in the past 2 years. I feel like it started after I left, like sort of like my body like let down. It was like, all right, you're aging now. I'm also 36, so I'm not young. But it really can age your body. And I sometimes think about like what kind of long-term damage did that do? You know, what is my trajectory of my life going to look like compared to if I hadn't been through those kinds of trauma? But we'll never know. And so, you know, I can't really, you know, sit here and be like, oh no, I'm worried about how many years from now and what that loss of well-being looks like, because we don't know and we have no control over it. We just have to live to the best of our ability now and take care of ourselves to the best of our ability now. My mother told me I'd be crazy to leave. That's scary. It's crazy I've not spoken to the new girl since last year, so how can they think it's my fault? It's your fault just for existing. That's it. They're all there is to it. You're going to be the villain in their story forever. We went to high school together and almost went through the exact same shit. What? You went to high school with who? With whom? I have done amazing and had a massive setback after 6 months. I tried dating someone and I just can't because stupidly I'm still attached to my past. What's that all about? That is a great question. It's very hard to date. I am over 2 years single, just over 2 years no contact, zero interest in dating, no interest at all. And I don't feel like I'm like the Grinch and I'm like, oh, I can't date because I'm so horribly wounded. But I'm just like, I do not want to. I do not want to give my time to anybody. I can't think of there being a person who would be worth me sacrificing my already like the time, the precious time that I have. I went to high school with you. Were we in the same year? But yeah, my already precious time, and then, you know, having lost time, like I try not to be like, oh my gosh, I lost so much time, but like reality is like time goes on, you know, we go through periods of our life that, I mean, even like with my marriage and even like before my marriage, I'm like, man, how much time did I spend just like blah, blah, blah. So my time is so precious. Your time is so precious. And I just can't imagine wanting to date. But also, like, if you feel like you're attached to your past, it really depends what in your past that you're attached to. No, if you know what school I went to, that's fine. Yeah, definitely don't say it on here. I believe you. But so you would have been in my sister's grade. I'm trying to look at your picture, but I don't recognize you, but I feel like I would. You were in the same grade as my sister then. That's crazy. Hi, small world. I don't usually have a lot of people from that area who follow me or pop onto my lives, or if they do, they don't say anything and I'll like recognize the name. So thanks for saying hello. I cut off. Oh, and also I'm sorry that we went through the exact same shit. That sucks. I cut off my friend who started showing abuse, red flags, couldn't condone their behavior. She was showing it towards me and her. Yes, her name was Alyssa. Yeah, it tells you a lot about the environment I grew up in. Yeah. What was I gonna say? Okay, lungs. Yeah, so it can be really hard because, you know, I sit here and I talk about abuse in relationships, but abuse and toxic behavior and red flags and all that stuff can come from all directions. It could be family members, it could be someone at work, it could be a friend, it could be whoever, and it all kind of looks the same. And sometimes it's a little bit harder to see when it's not your partner. It's hard to see when it is your partner, but it can be hard to see when it's not your partner because you're not necessarily living with that person unless they're a roommate or you live with your family. And so you're kind of like, man, they were off today or they're weird today, or I don't know, they're kind of inconsistent. But then it's a lot easier for you to be like, well, they must be going through something because you don't see them all the time. So then when you do see them, maybe they're okay that time, maybe they're not. So it can drag out longer when it's someone who you don't see every day. I guess with coworkers, you're probably also fairly aware that every single time you show up at work, you're miserable because that person's there. But it can be really tough. And people don't necessarily talk about, I mean, there's a lot of accounts out there now. When I was leaving, there were way less, but there's a lot of accounts out there now of people talking about abuse in relationships, which again, just a couple years ago, not so much. But you don't see a lot of people like loudly educating about what it can look like when it's a friend or a colleague. So yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry if it's really loud. I have you on my computer because that's just easiest for me. How long have I been on here? Oh my gosh. Only 25 minutes. It kind of feels like longer. So yeah, I hope that helps, Natalie. I don't know if you're still in here, but I hope that helps about like the past thing. And about holding on to your past, like I said, it really depends what you're talking about. If you're talking about your abuser, that's really, the narcissistic ex, I can't move on from them. Feel like even now they still have that control. They ended our 4-year relationship via text. I don't feel like I have closure and they have completely cut me off. And yet I know they aren't even nice to me. And during my time with them, I was broken and I still have these feelings for them. You just have a lot of healing to do. And so I know it sucks to like try to start dating and then be like, shut it down. It's honestly, I personally think it's very dangerous to date that soon after abuse. I think it takes a long time to heal from abuse to the point where you can be with someone. And some people will say, nope, I found someone 3 months after, I found someone, whatever. That's fine. I think that it's really important to take time to heal. And when I say heal, like everyone heals in different ways, but we have to be working, right? We have to be seeking out help or listening to podcast episodes from anyone. It does not have to be me. Learning about abuse and what it looks like, trying to understand, like you don't have to make it your job to understand it, but just continuing to try to grasp and understand what happened to you and why, and why that worked from your end. Like, why were they able to do all those things to me, and what it looks like when someone does that, so it doesn't happen again, so that you are more prepared to date. I just think that we need to, I don't want to say arm ourselves, because I don't want to make it seem like we're out here just like on the defense. But we really need to be armed with that information and with that healing, because when we're not healing, and I will always say healing, I see some people be like, well, I'm healed. No, you're not. Sorry. I'm looking you in the eyeballs right now. I think you are not healed, because we have a lifetime. How old are you? I'm 36. We have a lifetime of pain that we have to heal from. And often that kind of healing doesn't happen until you hit the rock bottom from an abusive relationship or something else like that. There are people who are like living an okay life and whatever, and they start to realize something's bothering them, and they go to therapy, and maybe the therapy helps them realize, well, they still have this pain from from their mom or dad when they were little, or their sibling or whatever, and they start to kind of work through that, and that's okay. But it, like we aren't going to heal if we're just like, time does not heal. It's not just time. It's not just time alone. Like, I'm not saying like time will help, time will ease it, time will make it, separate you from the fact and stuff like that. But it's not just like, I'm going to sit back and wait. You have to be doing the work. And like I said, an understanding. If you want, come to group coaching and listen to other people talking about it and get that information and get that support. Group coaching is once a month. See if that helps you. And I hope that this is coming off in a loving way. And I'm not like, oh, you need to be doing more, because that's not my vibe. But we definitely have to be like, if we're feeling that, I think that more understanding of the situation needs to be there, because like they cut you off, which sucks. Even if you like do not like that person at all, it sucks to have someone cut you off. But the closure is that. The closure is, so a lot of times with abuse, we have to like, we're looking at it from over here, and we have to be able to come around, and we have to look at it from a completely different perspective, because you're looking at it over here from what would be a healthy relationship. If you and I are dating and we break up and there's no abuse, we're going to have a conversation, and it's going to be respectful. This isn't working anymore. One of us or both of us might be really upset. We might cry. We might try to support each other through it. Maybe not. Maybe we just need to cut ties, whatever. But there's closure. There's a reason. You understand why the other person feels that way, or you've explained why you feel that way. This is not the same thing. You are never, ever going to have closure from a narcissistic, psychopathic, sociopathic, coercive controller type person. You are not going to. And so the closure, like, you have to go from here thinking, I don't have closure, to I have the closure. This is my closure. My closure is the way they treated me, the information and understanding that I have of what abuse looks like, and the fact that they just cut me off and left, and it's been 6 months and they haven't talked to me. That's, again, if you're breaking up with someone in a healthy relationship, you might agree to not continue to stay in touch and not reach out to each other and stuff, because that can be hard. That's different because you both had that closure and you don't expect them to reach out to you or anything like that. You have the closure. But in these situations, that's the closure. That person just blocked you and went and did whatever they wanted to do. There was nothing healthy about it. There was nothing good about it. That is your closure. And so, again, when it comes to abusive people, you have to give yourself the closure by understanding it for what it is. It's never going to be like it would be with a healthy person. Having a green flag partner helps with healing also. Support, consistency, and patience is what a healing person needs in a partner. They may not understand, but all other green flags help. The big thing is that you have a safe place where your nervous system can be calm. And if you have a green flag partner, I've never heard that term, whatever you're going through, you're in a calm situation, versus someone who's going to trigger you and make it harder for you to heal and do all of that stuff. I still recommend staying single for a while. I really, really, really do, because I've said this before. I really need some water. If you go into a healthy relationship, you start dating someone who is healthy, a green flag partner. Say you both have jobs. That person's busy. They also need to take care of themselves, right? You have to take care of yourself physically, emotionally, financially, all that stuff. Maybe you have a kid. Maybe they have a kid. Maybe you both have kids. Maybe one or both of you have pets. Maybe one or both of you have families and friends and all that stuff. When the F are you going to have time to really do your healing? And like you said, things come up. You get triggered. You have a healthy conversation. You do heal from that, because you're like, wow, that person's not going to push my buttons just because they can. That person saw my trigger, understood, listened, validated, and we moved on. That's very healing. However, there's not a lot of extra time for you to dig deep. Hopefully you can go to therapy or have a coach like myself. You don't have to do that to heal, but all this other stuff that's required to really heal, like, you really just don't have time to do that because you're trying to nurture a relationship with someone new. And so, some people might argue that I'm like too strict about it, or I'm the Grinch. I'm not saying you can't date, do what you want to do, but I just think it's so important. And here's another thing. When you're single, you learn about yourself. When you're single, you make choices for yourself, not based on what anyone else wants for you or what anyone else wants to do. What do you want for dinner? You're deciding. What do you want to wear? You're deciding. Where do you want to go? You're deciding. Do you want to travel? What country? You're deciding. You learn so much about yourself when you get to make those decisions and not be like, one of the things that I love the most is I do not care what anyone else is doing. I don't have to ask permission. I don't have to be like, hey, what do you feel like doing Friday night? I don't care what you're doing Friday night because I'm going to do this on Friday night. And so you learn a lot about yourself, especially those who've been in relationships for most of their life, whether they're abusive or not. You spent so much of your time concerned about what another person wants and is doing, and you've maybe not spent as much time making your own decisions. And so I think that's a really, really important part of staying single after abuse. If you've never had an abusive relationship and you're like, no, most relationships, like, there's like an ebb and flow about who's making choices. I feel comfortable about making choices. I know what I want most of the time. Sometimes I make choices for the other person or like what they want, but I have a good intuition. I listen to like my own needs and stuff like that. Cool. But if you've never had that and you don't feel that, I think taking time to be single and learn how to do that is really incredible. Hi, Kat. Welcome in. What you just said about closure shouldn't have hit me so hard, but it did, bud. Yeah, that is why I talk about this stuff, and that's why I do like going live, because things come up and you never know what is, someone needs to hear what, like, again, I could say the same thing tomorrow and maybe it doesn't hit you in the same way, or maybe other people are listening, doesn't matter to them, but like, sometimes you're in the right place at the right time and someone says something the right way and you're like, I needed that. I think I'll just be a single Pringle for life once I'm out because I don't trust my judgment. I think that eventually, like, I'm 2 years out and I will be single for a very long time. Mark my words, unless something crazy happens, there's nobody that I would be willing to sacrifice my time for. I already said that. I'm not going to go into it more, but I trust my judgment. I absolutely trust my judgment because I've had 2 years to heal, continue healing. I've had 2 years to listen to my intuition, to really polish it up. I trust myself. So I believe that you will trust yourself again. It just takes time. And I know when you're in it, it feels impossible. It feels impossible. But I am here to tell you that you'll trust yourself again. Whether you decide to date or not, you will trust yourself again. It's hard when it's a friend, but it's good to recognize abuse. I meant I saw it towards me and her girlfriend. Yep. Oops. I don't know. I just sent an invite. I don't even know what that means. Ay. I left a month ago and wasn't strong enough to block her, and now I'm trying to find that strength. I don't know if it will be helpful, but hitting the block button on everything is really scary. But if you do it, first of all, don't do it until you're willing to never unblock them again. Because if you are wishy-washy and you block and unblock and they get messages through you, they're going to know that eventually you'll unblock them again and that they'll still have power over you. But if you can hit that block button, like, the healing really begins when that person loses control, loses access to you. Done. Over. The healing really begins, and it can blossom from there. Hello, Kat. Welcome in. I'm so sick of these bugs. There's so many they're like fruit flies or gnats. I don't know why I don't have fruit sitting everywhere in my house, but they're everywhere. Okay. I'm having the toughest time right now. I'm so glad you're live. Good timing. Good. I'm so glad. I'm glad you're here. I'm not glad that you're going through a tough time, but I'm glad. I feel like this almost happens every live where it's like right place, right time, and someone comes in who really needs it. So welcome in. Any advice on co-parenting with a narcissistic or alcoholic ex? This is a hill I will die on. It is not called co-parenting. When it's an abusive person, it's not co-parenting. So, not to be like, don't do that, but it's not co-parenting. Co-parenting implies that the other person, you and the other person, at least have a fair amount of respect for one another and that you're working together to put the child first. Is your narcissistic alcoholic ex putting the child first in any way, shape, or form? No. But I know that it's like we say relationship. I was in an abusive relationship. It was not a relationship. Not from the first day to the last day was it a relationship. It's a controller, controllee, abuser, abusee dynamic. It's not a relationship, and they were not your partner. They're your abuser. They're a coercive controller. They are a perpetrator of abuse, right? But like when you say co-parent, like that's the word that we use to understand that, oh, you're talking about this. You have a kid with someone who you're not married to or in a relationship with. How do we do that, right? But I like to use the word parallel parenting, if you can do parallel parenting, or, they are counter parenting you. So how do you parent with someone who's counter parenting you? Hi, Chloe. Minimize your contact with them. Try to have a third party app if you can, like Our Family Wizard or something, so that everything is tracked. It's all in there. You only see their messages when you open that app. Only respond about absolute essentials about the child or children. They're going to do this thing where they say, okay, I need you to pick up the kid at 4:00. Blah, 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 blah. Complaining about you doing all this stuff, going on, blah, 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 blah. Because they want a response from you. They want to piss you off. They want to agitate you. They want to make you look crazy. They're punishing you for leaving or whatever. Your response in that time is, see you at 4:00. Doesn't matter what else they say that entire time. They can call you names. They can say, oh, you're trying to take the kids to me. You're this, you're that. See you at 4:00. That's it. That is my advice. I don't have that experience. I always recommend Lisa Sunny from Stronger Than Before. She has that experience. A lot of the information that I just gave, I have gathered from people like Lisa who talk about, Lisa's a very powerful woman. I love Lisa. And I think, she is parenting with a counter parent, and she doesn't mess around. She's not answering if any texts get through. She's not answering anything. That's not just what I said. See you at 4:00. Yes, I have the children on Christmas. And even then, if it's something that they already know, if it's something in writing, because a lot of times there'll be a parenting plan. Do you have the kids next weekend or do I? Look at the fucking parenting plan. It is not my problem. It is not my place to tell you what your role is in a situation, right? And they will try to trick you and just for you to respond so that they can continue to have a conversation with you, right? Sorry, I dropped that F-bomb. I usually try not to do that because YouTube and Facebook, it's like recorded for later. So if you're like sitting at home, you're like cooking, listening to this, whatever, later on, and you're like, dang, my kid's here. I'm so sorry, but that's the truth. And that is my advice. Well, I'm still making shit decisions because I'm trying to leave without hurting her. Stop it. I wasn't punching you. I was punching the air. I don't punch people. I had a client once who was saying the same thing. When I say once, I can't remember who it was. I'm thinking of a situation. I've had many clients. I don't want to hurt them. F that. I'm going to be real with you. They hurt you. There's another bug. They hurt you. They have been abusing you. They have been tormenting you. A lot of us, they're abusing your children. They're abusing the dogs. They're doing all that. And I'm not trying to guilt you or shame you because it's not your fault that happened, right? It's their fault. But they have lost the right to be treated fairly by you in that sense that you're going to be caring about their feelings, right? My ex-husband, when I left, I was so frustrated and so fed up. And I had someone in my ear telling me how to handle the separation, my abuser. I don't talk about that very often. I am not happy about how I left my marriage. If I could, I would go back and do it over. It would have taken me a lot longer to leave because I didn't want to hurt him. That I would proceed with caution because I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt either. Leaving and separating from this marriage is painful for both of us. How can we support each other? Let's go to therapy together so that we can kindly support each other through the dissolution of our marriage. With an abusive person, again, fuck that. They have lost your, how do I say this? They do not deserve for you to be staying with them because just what if they're hurt? And by the way, they're not going to be hurt. And this is like, sorry, I know I'm talking to you like I'm yelling at you and I'm like being really cruel. It's not going to hurt them. It's not going to hurt them. It will not hurt them. They will say that it hurts them. They will make excuses. They'll tell everyone else that they're the victim, that you left, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, a lot of times when our abusive people, like I remember being in that relationship going, why isn't this person left yet? If I'm so horrible, if I'm so crazy, if I'm the problem in the relationship, why haven't they left yet? And they're always, oh, I'm so loyal. I never try to break up with you. You're always trying to leave, blah, blah, blah. Because if you leave, they are the victim. Okay. So they're waiting for you to leave and they're going to torment you and they're going to cheat on you and they're going to do horrible stuff and they're going to keep you up at night and they're going to mess with your kids and they're going to do all this stuff because they want you to leave so that they can go and tell people, she left me. Lindsay left me. She took my dog. It's not their dog. She took my child. It is not their child. This is my dog. This is my child. She won't let me see them. She won't even let us, like, I just want to still see the kid. I offered to share the dog 100 times and she won't even let me. She came and took the dog, blah, blah. I'm a victim. Now I get to use this victim sob story on the person that I've already been flirting with for the last while so that they already feel like I'm interested in them and they're kind of interested in me so that I can make that move really quickly. I'm going to use this sob story to gain their empathy. And now I'm going to screw this person over eventually. This is my new victim. But they are going to do that so that you leave first, so that you're the victim. And guess what? You're still going to need to leave first, probably. I know some people were discarded by an abusive person, but a lot of times, like I'm thinking, like I had a kid, we lived in a house. I could afford the rent by myself, although like I wouldn't want to pay that much for rent. Like it's really crazy. It's really expensive here, but like I could handle this. They could not afford to live in that house by themselves. Also, they're one person. They don't need a house. They don't need a yard. They don't need anything. But I looked at them and I said, hey, no way this person is going to vacate willingly. I have to leave. I have to go and find housing with my child and my dog. I have to uproot my child to get away from this person because they're not going to leave. They have to be the victim. So this fly has to go. Come back, little fly. I was going to say something that probably would have sounded psychopathic. It's just, it's a fruit fly. It's okay. Okay. You trying to get these bugs is a whole new level of relatable. It's horrible. I was really happy because I was interpreting this morning and my client was like, and I was like, yes, it's not just me. Because you look crazy when you're like interpreting and you're like, hi, how's it going? How blah, 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 blah. And then you just have to like keep going like nothing happened. You're like, everyone absolutely saw me doing that. I probably did it on the podcast too. I'm like, because I recorded this morning. I left and didn't block mine and she acted so hurt, but she's back to being mean now and she's fine. I think they act hurt because they know that we're empathetic. Absolutely. They act hurt because again, they want to be the victim and also they want to keep you around just in case. So again, they could be moving on someone else. They could have already moved on someone else. Maybe they got 2-3 people possibly lined up, but if that falls through, they need you to still be around. So they want to keep in touch with you. They want to maintain your empathy. They want to tell you how much they're suffering, or they'll have other people tell you. I had someone say, yeah, every time we go to the gym, they always look so down. It's like they're so sad. And every time that your son's name pops up, they get all teary-eyed. No, F that. First of all, you're blocked now because I now realize that you're a flying monkey, but they keep you around and they keep that sob story. I can still think about you. I want to reach out, make sure you're okay, blah, blah, blah. Because then again, if those other people don't work out, and by the way, they would rather have those other people because it's easier to start over than try to continue to fool someone who can see this for what it is now. So it's easier to go out and grab someone else and start over than it is to, you get to a point that you have enough information that they can't control you anymore. And it's just a problem. They don't want you anymore, right? But just in case there's no one else, I'm going to see if I at least can still get some attention from you. I don't want to hurt my ex either, but he gave me no choice after putting me in the hospital. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And by the way, again, Kim, I'm going to remind you, that person's not hurt by you leaving or cutting them off or whatever. What we do is, so like you've heard of projection, right? Where the abusive person will project their nasty stuff on you. You're cheating on me. You're lying. You're crying just to get, you're manipulating me with your crying because blah, 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 because they're projecting their feelings and their functions on you. They are bad. They do bad things and they want it. They only can see that that's you too, right? Everything you do is bad because they're projecting that onto you. And we do that to them. We project our goodness and our empathy and our, like, oh man, I feel so bad. I still feel bad sometimes if I think about, which I don't that often, this boyfriend that I had that I broke up with in like 2011. I still feel bad sometimes. Like, man, I really could have been kinder. I'm sure he's totally fine now and doesn't think about me at all. But because I wasn't that kind with him, just because I was like ready to break up and I was young and I was just like, okay, good luck. Whatever. I really could have been kinder to him. He was a very good person. He treated me very well. That is not the same as what we're talking about here, right? This person abused you. So we are projecting our empathy and goodness onto them, and we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. That's not ours to carry. And it just makes it so much harder to move on and to heal. I'm not telling you to be cruel. Don't be cruel. Don't talk to them. Don't waste your time trying to give back at them. I've heard people give advice and, it's probably a joke, but I saw a tweet the other day that someone was like, when they text you and say they miss you and you're like, well, guess what? There's this many people in the world, whatever. I know you can go out and find one. I'm like, no, just block them. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to taunt them. You don't have to try to get attention from them, blah, blah, blah. I'm not telling you to be mean, but just get it away from them because they don't deserve your empathy. And they are not the goodness and the empathy and all the things that we project onto them. I never say like there's some like narcissists are evil. I don't say that they're evil. They do very evil things. They do horrible things. They kill, they physically abuse, they financially destroy, they're emotionally destructive. They are not good people. They are not safe to be around, but I'm not out here just like, all people of this, whatever, are evil. I think that's a waste of our energy. I think we just need to be aware of what they do, what they act like, why, and stay the F away from them. You're always talking about leaving is crazy to me because I have logic. I don't talk about leaving anymore. I just move silently. Yep. Y'all have a good day. I gotta go. Okay, see you later. You're making me realize I'm trying to treat this like a normal breakup and it isn't one. Thank you so much. It's not a normal breakup. It's not a healthy breakup. I'm glad that we're talking about this and this is like maybe what you needed to hear because again, and I said it earlier with like closure, it is not a normal breakup. It's an escape. It is an escape. You're not going to be able to approach this like that person is a reasonable, healthy person. If you are struggling, if you haven't left yet and you are struggling with leaving because you're kind of like, maybe you've initiated it or you're trying and you're kind of waiting for that person to like step up like a normal, like, I'll tell you this again, I don't like to talk about my ex-husband very much because like he's a good person and he's still in my life. We are co-parents. So I don't like to give like a lot of personal information. I mean, it's not personal, but like when I was ending the marriage, it was ongoing. He kind of knew it was coming, but when it happened, he stated he did not want it to happen. He wanted to continue to try. But he also was like, I can't force you. You are going to leave. I accept what's happening. Like, not I accept like, oh, okay, that's fine, let's go. But like, I'm going to accept this. I'm not going to force you to stay here. I'm not going to drag this out, right? That is a healthy breakup. Not perfect. It's imperfect because people are hurting. But that is like kind of like what we wait for with these people. We're like waiting for them to be like, you're right. I did that too. I had a list of things that our relationship lacked. I still have it. I emailed it to them and I said, can we sit and can we talk about this? And I was waiting for them to respond in a healthy way, even though this was close to the end. I knew I was in a trauma bond. I started to have like the terminology about abuse that we use. I was waiting for them to look at it and be like, you're right. You're so right. We don't have that. We don't have that kind of relationship. We should end this and to have it be mutual. What really happened was we sat down, we went for a drink somewhere, like a rooftop bar, and they were talking about like the most random stuff. I have no idea what they were talking about, but it was just like they were having like filler conversations, knowing that I was there to talk about ending the relationship. And I just was like, like, I don't give a rat's butt about any of this. You're just, I know what you're doing. You're avoiding the conversation. So then I was like, so should we talk about this list that I have? Well, why don't we just break up then? And I said, okay. Because what they're doing there, and I've made content about this too, why don't we just break up then if you're so miserable, is that they're trying to steer you away from the conversation of like a healthy conversation. You know, it doesn't mean you are bad. You're not sitting here blaming this person for everything. You're just saying our relationship does not have mutual trust. It does not have this, doesn't have this. Should we still be here, right? So, but they're trying to derail you, distract you, activate your abandonment wound, get you to say, no, I don't want to break up. I don't want to. Okay, then why are we talking about this? Okay, well, it's over, right? And so it's not a normal breakup. You have to do it on your own. You have to know that they're going to probably retaliate. They're going to cause problems, blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to suggest, if you're willing to listen to my podcast, there are probably 2 episodes. Let me see if I can pull it up on Spotify that I want you to listen to, Samantha. About breaking up and post-separation abuse. Not because I'm trying to scare you, because post-separation abuse is something that we absolutely have to be aware of the possibility of it happening. But like, again, when I left my husband in that relationship, he did not retaliate. He didn't do crazy shit. He didn't show up at my, like where I was staying. He didn't do anything that's just like irrational and like whatever, right? Nothing like that. And so I want you to, if you're willing to listen to at least that one episode, there might be one more. Post-separation abuse. Yeah. May 31st, post-separation abuse. I wanted to also do sharing my escape plan, which is May 24th. If you're willing to listen to those, I think both of those might help you. But I wanted to share that because like understanding, that this is not a normal relationship is so important. And knowing like, okay, again, you haven't left yet, but like when Lindsay tried to leave this person, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And I don't just talk about mine. It's like, this can happen. They can retaliate. They can show up. That is not a normal relationship. So I guess that's just what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to, let's go. Of course. My computer takes so long to load. So I am a freelance interpreter and I get a lot of job like emails like asking, can you take this job? And a job just came in. I was like, yes, I can do that. Click on it. By the time I click on it, because my computer's so slow, it's already gone. It is doggy dog out here. He's probably more hurt that he's in prison and had to sell his house and car than putting me in a hospital. Let me use a different word for you. He's not hurt. He's He's upset that he got caught and that there are consequences. He's not hurt. He's probably angry. He's probably feeling like entitled, like, well, I don't deserve this, blah, blah, blah. But he's probably not sitting in there hurt, like, I can't believe she did this. He's like, I don't deserve this punishment. I shouldn't have been in here. She did this to me. She made me do this, whatever. He's not hurt. He's sorry he got caught and has to deal with the consequences. That is what they want the most. They want your engagement. Yep. They only care about themselves. Real empathy for anyone doesn't exist to them. The podcast is amazing and has been such an eye-opener and helpful. Thank you so much. If you can, rate it for me, because it's such a tiny podcast, and that's really fine. I don't ever see it being a huge production because I don't want someone else like write scripts for me or control that kind of thing for me, but it helps. So if you can, if you have a minute, rate it if you feel like it. I also don't like to ask for like handouts for like, please do this, please do that. That feels weird to me. But like, if you feel like doing that, if you haven't already, it would mean a lot to me. I always read the reviews as well, and I always share them on my Instagram because it means a lot to me. The hurt is a way to manipulate your big empathetic heart. Yep. I'm glad I stuck around because this was a really slow starting live, and I was like, well, maybe I'll get to some other stuff, and I am going to get to some other stuff today. I have time today to like do not all the things, but like to do some stuff for myself, and I'm going to enjoy it. But I'm glad I stuck around because at first I was like, okay, nobody's around. It's like Wednesday morning, afternoon, whatever. I'm glad I stuck around because this one turned out to be really good. I'm told that it's because of my childhood trauma that I think everyone is abusive. That is a mega gaslight. And people will tell you that. But the truth is that a lot of times when we have childhood trauma and we're around abusive people, we tend to repeat a pattern where we have friends who are at least toxic. We have partners who are toxic. We go through all of this stuff and it's just a different person. Kind of like how abusers have victim after victim after victim, and it's a different person, but it's the same tactics more or less. It's the same thing. And I'm sure most of us have experienced multiple connections in our lives where it was less than desirable because our parents or something in our childhood set us up for that. I'll go and review it for you now. You're amazing, and the stuff you share has helped me not feel alone. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. Trying to please the abuser to keep them quiet. I'm a champ. You gotta get out. And I will not just sit here and say, just leave. I don't do that, but we have to get you out of this situation. And I know this has been going on for a while because you've been hanging out with us for a while, and appeasing them. And like, I sometimes talk about how like when I left the home that we lived in and I was at my son's dad's house because it was empty, so it was a safe place for me to stay with my son. At least we weren't trapped. I could lock the door, but they still walked in the morning when I let the dogs in and tried to take my child. I would let them come over at night when my son was asleep because I didn't let them see my son again after I left, after they were like calling him a brat and saying I'm done with him. And I was like, he's 3, he can hear you. We're not doing this. And that's when I left. And someone else was in the home at that time and helped me pack up. And I know for a fact that is the only reason I made it out while they were in the house. Otherwise, they would have physically prevented me from leaving because that is usually what they did. Many, many times. And so I would let them come over at night after he was asleep, and we would have like snacks or food together and watch a movie. And it was because I was appeasing them so that the abuse, the post-separation abuse, would be toned down. And so I was doing that, and I knew that I had a one-way ticket to my mom's house. I knew that I was leaving, and I knew that it was a short amount of time, and I let them come over so that they wouldn't text me all day, threatening me, saying they were going to sue me, saying that Pip was theirs, they were going to keep my dog, that I needed to come home, hoovering, lying, guilt tripping, all that stuff in order to prevent that from happening. Fine, you can come over tonight after dinner or after bedtime, and we'll watch them. And they were acting like they were so good and calm and kind, and that they were different, and things were going to be better, so that when I came back, we could, get back together and everything would be fine. And I was acting like I was doing that too. But they didn't know I was doing that. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll be kind. But what happened every single night was that when I would they were hoping that I would say that they could just stay there or that maybe we'll all go back home. But each night that I was like, all right, time for me to go to bed, see you later, they would start an argument. And so even with me appeasing to keep the abuse at a minimum, I was still dealing with that shit until I got on a plane on a red-eye flight one way to Indiana and didn't come back until they were out of the house where we lived in. I sat there and paid rent and sat like a sitting duck. That's not the right thing, but I just sat there waiting for confirmation that the landlord had the key so that I could go back and get my stuff, which I'm very, 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 very lucky that I had the ability to save up as much as I did so that I could do that and just play that waiting game to get them out, because otherwise they're not going to. Like I said earlier, they're not going to leave. You literally have to like force them out. Like I'm thinking of like when you have like maybe there's like a critter. I don't know if this is a thing. There's like a critter squatting under your home and maybe someone comes and they smoke them out. Like they don't kill them, but like the critter will flee because they like smoked them out. Like, shh. That's what you have to do with an abusive person. But my point is that I did a lot of appeasing. I did a lot of laying low. I did a lot of not engaging in arguments that they like. I could see that they were doing it. You can't live like that. And I know, like you said, it's been going on for 12 years, but it's still taking its toll on you, even if it's not as severe as it was 12 years ago or 5 years ago. Sending you hugs. I can feel you're exhausted. I know you are out of your stitch, but you are a queen. Thank you so much. Yes, I am actually exhausted, but it's less to do. Well, it's kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say it out loud. There's still things that come up which are unfortunate. But most of the time when I'm exhausted is because I'm a single mom and I work a lot and I spend a lot of time with my son, which is wonderful, and I would not change it. But I'm constantly going and constantly moving. And you actually caught me on a day, that's why I went live, that my day just opened up, and it is a huge gift for me because my son's with his dad right now, and usually he would be home, which I love. Like there was a part of me that was like, well, maybe I'll go over there and hang out with. No, let them have their time together. Take some me time. Again, this is a gift. You don't have this very often. I have been having trouble falling asleep lately. And so, yes, I'm exhausted. But I pretty much run always tired. So yeah, but it's not necessarily from what we're talking about or, this whole situation. Because I'm in a really good place about it. Like I said, things come up. This is part of healing to PTSD. I am not healed, not just from that, but from life, from childhood, from all the things. I don't believe healed is a thing. I really don't. I think we're always healing. And that doesn't mean that it's always a job and it's work and you're just trudging through horrific trauma and reliving it. But like, we're always healing. There's always just things in life that we realize, like big or small, that we're like, oh yeah, that's been something I've been carrying around for a long time. And yeah, we go way back in here. I always stay quiet to protect him, but I couldn't stay quiet any longer. Yep. Exactamente. They love when we acquiesce. Yes, they do. Max threatened to leave me all the time as a way to control me, but then when I ended it, they wouldn't leave. Exactly. So they will threaten to leave the relationship to activate your abandonment wound and cause that panic in you, because you're like, no, don't leave me. Even if you don't want to be with them and you don't like them and you want it to be over, it triggers the abandonment wound in you unless you have that under control, which a lot of people don't because it's very hard. They're doing it on purpose. They're bluffing, and they're just doing it so you'll shut up, so you'll drop whatever you're on about how you're not happy, how they hurt you, how whatever. Fine, let's just be done. Mine do that all the time. Fine, let's be done. Break up with me then. Go back to your ex-husband. If you're so miserable with me and he wasn't so bad, go back to him all the time. Just so I'd be like, dang, no. But then when I would try to leave, that's when, trigger warning, that's when they would physically attack me and block me from leaving and shut my leg in a door, leave bruises on my body, anything like that. They would not let me leave. And again, that's why people shouldn't say just leave, because people do not understand how hard it is to get out of these situations. Sending you so much love. I get it. I totally get it. You're smart. Thank you so much. OMFG every single time. Yes, my abandonment issue that they spelunked for in the beginning. Yeah, I love that spelunking. That's what happens. They right away, they're like, give me all your information so I can use it against you later. And it works. And they do. And that's why, like, if you're asking me certain questions right away, sorry, you're getting filed away and red flag. I don't date, so that doesn't happen. But like, feels like that's. And so one thing is, like, I know people get really excited to date, you meet someone new and you're excited and it's like, oh, we have, things in common or whatever. I will tell people, like, if you're sharing about the abusive relationship that you were in, or you're sharing about childhood trauma or something, if they ask you a question, say something like, you know what, I would love to share that with you sometime when I know you a little bit better. This is definitely something that I kind of like hold near and dear to my heart. So once I feel like I can trust you and we're good, I'd love to share that with you. And if they're like, that makes so much sense, you're right. I have things I'd love to share with you eventually too. I'm really excited to get to know you more. Green flag. But if they're like, oh, you don't trust me yet? I thought we trusted each other. I thought that we were both on the same page, blah, blah, blah. Red flag, fucking run. Because that's the kind of shit my abuser would do. Oh, I thought we were on the same page. I thought we wanted. I've talked about this before. I have a podcast episode about it. It was 1 or 2 days. It was 2 days after the first time we hung out. 24 to 48 hours after the first time we hung out. And we were at the park, and a little young girl who was in high school, who was the child of our friends, had asked if she could come over to my house for a while to get away from her parents. She's like, I just need to come over. And I was like, of course you can come over, because I was coming out of my marriage where anyone could come over anytime. I had my friends, he had his friends, we had mutual friends. It was very healthy. Like, do what you want. If someone asked you to come over, sure. Yeah, let's make some food, like whatever. He wasn't there at that time, but like, that's where I was coming from. And they left the party, it was like a barbecue. They stormed out, didn't say a word to me. And I had to message them later and be like, you okay? And they're like, oh, I thought we were on the same page. I thought we were hanging out today, blah, blah, blah. And that's the kind of shit that then like you start to isolate yourself and you start to be like, oh man, okay, well, this person's not happy. I guess I won't do that. Next time I'll know better. I said something like, I thought we could just all hang out. I thought that, like, whatever. And I thought we were on the same page, blah, blah, blah. So again, green flag, I totally understand. We just met. We've only hung out 3 times. You don't know me that well. I look forward to learning more about you as we go through this process. Green flag. Thought we're on the same page. Oh, you don't trust me, blah, blah, blah. Red flag. Carnival of red flags. Run. I refuse to date. Me too. That is such a good way to put it. As an ASD, ADHD woman, I find meandering this stuff so difficult. Yeah. I think that my ADHD, like, I hyper focused on it, and I became like, I don't want to say I became obsessed with it, but I became like determined to crack the code. It's like when we want to all of a sudden take up knitting, but a lot of times the little hobbies that we grab don't stick as much unless it's like the hobby. We try a lot of things and all of a sudden it's the next new thing. Like one time I bought a sewing machine and I sold that on the marketplace because I was like, I'm not going to sew. But that was one of my things where I read the books and I did the training and I got my certificate as a trauma recovery coach and I did all this stuff because that was my like, gotta do it. I have to do this. Recently diagnosed as ASD and it feels like coming home. Okay. I have to say something. And I don't say this out loud very often because I don't want to be that person who's like, I think I have autism, or, like how everyone's always like, I saw a TikTok once and said I have this and I haven't. And I don't want to be that person. I don't feel that at all. But sometimes I wonder if it's ADHD. ADHD is a term that I'm seeing. And just knowing that like there are more and more people who are talking about being autistic that doesn't look like what we were traditionally told it was. And I'm like, I have some things that like I very, very clearly have ADHD. I've known my whole life I am diagnosed with ADHD. Like if you hang out with me for more than 30 seconds, you're like, oh my God, what is this person doing like this? It's very obvious that I have ADHD, but there are some things that I definitely mask that I know about myself that I'm like, I'll give you one example because some of the other ones I'm like, oh, I can't. Like there are people who are really close to me that don't know, and it's all stemming, but I know ADHD stems as well, and some other things stem as well. Yeah, it was all based on white boys and like kids. But one of the things that like recently made me like, oh my gosh, Lindsay, is that I'm obsessed with Tudor England, and I will read every single book about Tudor England that comes out. And one time my ex-husband was like, I was reading a book about Anne Boleyn, especially Anne Boleyn. Take all my money. If it has Anne Boleyn on it, I want it. And so it's a little bit more than just like, oh, I'm really interested in this. And my ex-husband was like, don't you know everything about her already? She died in like 1536. And I'm like, whoa, back up. And I will listen to podcasts that are coming out about Anne Boleyn that are new, but also are they new? She died in 1536, but my brain just has to. and I'll listen to audiobooks about like the Plantagenets and the War of the Roses and all this stuff. We're like, really? I know most of the stuff already, but and it's like, that's my comfort information that I have to have more of. And so that was one of the things that I was like, again, it's like a small thing and it could be totally fine. It could be something else, but I was like, is it ADHD? Again, I haven't talked about that. Like, I haven't gone on my Instagram stories and been like, I think I might have this or whatever, but like, it crossed my mind. Self-diagnosis valid, women. I know, and I see a lot of people with autism talking about that. And I do agree. I'm just hesitant because I'm very hesitant because we do have so many people who, like, again, are diagnosing just based on like a TikTok they saw, or even like with physical health problems, like, oh no, I saw this, I think I have this, I think I have lupus, or I think I have whatever, because like we get so much information. Like, there's a physical issue that I'm pretty sure I have. I don't think I need to get diagnosed with it, but I'm like pointing to it. It's not necessarily life-changing at this point, but I don't want to just be like, oh, I have this just because I think I have. Like, again, it feels like one of those things that we have to have that proof of. But that's not always the case. So thank you for saying that. I dated way too soon, so now it's focusing on my healing, and sobriety is my main focus right now, and that's awesome, and I totally support that, and I'm really happy that you're doing that. Also wondering about the crossover between ADHD and CPTSD, seemingly have all three. Thank you for saying that. That's another thing that makes me hang up on that, because I also was diagnosed with CPTSD. Well, PTSD, because the DSM-5 doesn't recognize CPTSD. It needs to. That needs to be changed immediately. But I was diagnosed with PTSD and ADHD. And the reason why was because I was like, do I have one or both? And I kept questioning if I even had ADHD, because I was like, well, is that just from my PTSD from childhood? Is this from trauma? It's not. I do have ADHD. But I was like, and I knew that already. I've known since I was a kid. My family was like, this girl has ADHD, but like they didn't know how to deal with me at all. And so I was like, well, maybe it's just CPTSD from the abuse. I'm like, okay, no. And she was like, you definitely have ADHD. And then with the PTSD, I was like, well, is that just my ADHD? And I just like, what? It was both. And so now, like, my PTSD, my CPTSD has eased a lot. I still definitely, like, I don't know how long you go with CPTSD and like still qualify as having it, or like you're like recovering from it, I don't know. But sometimes I'm like, do I have ADHD, or is this still remnants of my CPTSD? And is it just a CPTSD mixing with ADHD? That it's like, and it can be really complicated because there is a lot of crossover. There is a lot of like, similarities between the two, and it can be really hard for you to understand. And unless there's a provider who can really help you and really understands the ins and outs of all of these things, it can be hard to sift through. So it was kids, but only boy kids. So the later adult studies were also based on them. Yep. We worry, hesitate for no reason other than there is a stigma. Yes. And I am not the person who, yes, I'm sure there's a little bit there, like saying out loud that I have. Another reason why it was hard for me to say out loud that I have ADHD is because everyone says they have ADHD. Like, how we hear so much about people overusing terms. In fact, I just interpreted about this yesterday. How people will say, I'm depressed. I'm feeling bipolar today. That person's a narcissist. Oh, I just have ADHD. Oh, I have OCD. And they don't. And it was it was like a project, and someone had other words you can use for bipolar. I'm feeling erratic, or I'm feeling moody, or I'm feeling whatever. And it was like suggested words to use other than that, because you're not bipolar, right? And so sometimes for me, I don't want to say I have ADHD because everyone says they have ADHD. And a lot of people do have it, and that's fine. But it's one of those things as well with ADHD and PTSD and all that stuff. Is like narcissism, abuse. It's like people start to not take it seriously because it's so said all the time. People are like, oh, everyone's been abused now. Oh, everyone's a narcissist now. And I'm like, no, these things are very important and should be not taken lightly and not be used as like a throwaway word in a sentence or whatever. So I think that's a part of it. But also, like, I'm sure, like we all have that built in, like a little bit of stigma about stuff like that. But it's weird because I don't, like, if someone's like, I'm autistic, I'm like, awesome, gotcha, whatever, cool. I'm not like, oh, you're autistic, what do I do around you? How do I, whatever. So why would I feel that about myself, if that makes sense? I feel like it gives us a lot of answers and understanding and like more patient, like having the ADHD diagnosis, again, even though I already knew, gave me so much more patience for myself. Like, all right, let's learn a little bit more about this. Oh, that's a coping mechanism. Okay, cool. Oh, that's because of this. Oh, this is why you're like this. I think it's really, it really helps us to understand ourselves, and it helps to not allow other people to abuse you. Because if you're like, wow, you're trying to make me seem, today I record an episode about how they will use helplessness. They will create a helplessness in you and then use that to control you. Interesting. It's gonna be interesting. Uploading it now. And what was I gonna say? I totally forgot what I was gonna say. My doctor diagnosed me with PTSD and anxiety. He also questioned me having OCD traits. Right, Megan? 3 years into therapy and still struggling hard with executive function. And some of us will always. Hello, beautiful. Welcome in. My docs say I need to get my PTSD under control, and then we can talk about ADHD and get me medicated. Yeah, but how do you get your PTSD under control? What are they doing to help you do that? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's not something that you can just go, okay, I'll get it under control. It takes time. It takes you being in a safe place where your nervous system can be calm to be able to tackle it. If it makes you feel better, there is no autism specific therapy. You can spend years getting a diagnosis. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. So for me, it's just like, I either do have that, and that is sprinkled in there into the cocktail of who I am as a human, or I don't. But either way, I'm very aware of like the special things about myself that make me like, that's harder for me, and this is how I have to get through it. Or that's a really weird thing about me, or what other people think is weird. That's just part of who I am, blah, blah, blah. So I don't necessarily have to have a diagnosis, but I also am like open to the idea that that's a possibility. And like, it makes sense that might be a part of who I am, you know? Yes, I feel a strong need to get safe still, which is why I'm starting a nonprofit. Yeah, feeling safe and being able to have that calm nervous system, I think, is absolutely essential to healing. Okay, I don't want to cut this short because this is going so well and I'm really loving this conversation, but I'm going to go do some other things for myself today while I have free time. If I come home tonight and I don't feel like reading or taking a bath or doing whatever, cleaning, then I might come back on tonight and hang out for a little bit just because I don't get that many opportunities to go live. So if you see me, I'll see you there. If not, I will come back another time. I'm always aware that this is an option when I have free time, so I will try to do that. But thank you so much for hanging out. And I will see you all later. Go drink some water. I'm going to do the same. My throat is like, so go drink some water. Okay, bye.